Hello, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, where we're going to be speaking about navigating rejection-sensitive dysphoria in the context of the workplace. So my name is Stephanie Camilleri, and I'm the founder of the ADHD Advocate, and we are in week 3 of ADHD Awareness Month. And this week, we're talking about the workplace. So yesterday, I spoke to Jonathan Mathana, one of my clients who we've been working with for a little while now. And basically, yesterday, we were talking about how to achieve potential with ADHD. Now, there's lots of reasons why ADHD has struggled to achieve their potential. And one of the biggest reasons why we're going to talk about today, which is rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Now, if you did watch yesterday's discussion with Jonathan, if you haven't, do have a look on our YouTube channel. We've got a recording of that there. But we talked about how basically it was the RSD, rejection-sensitive dysphoria, the RSD, that very much was in the way of Jonathan's potential. And this is the case for many, many, many clients that I coach. The RSD will get in the way because what rejection-sensitive dysphoria means, as Dr. William Dodson basically came up with this concept in America, an absolutely amazing guy. I'm very much as well, the ADHD Advocate subscribes to his functional definition of ADHD as well, which we could talk about another time. But rejection-sensitive dysphoria, it's such a crippling trait of ADHD, and yet emotional dysregulation and RSD, they're not diagnostic criteria for ADHD in the DSM-5. Now, there is talk that it will probably come to getting in there in the next version, but certainly I think in the European version, there's talk of emotional dysregulation, but it really needs to go in there because it is definitely one of the most crippling aspects of ADHD that gets in the way of ADHD is not just potential, but actually their lives in general, including in terms of being able to meet their own needs, have healthy relationships, because one thing about RSD is that many ADHDers are people pleasers as a result. So more about that later, because we'll try and stick to the workplace. So what is RSD? Now, Dr. Dodson talks about this dysphoria kind of feeling. Now, this comes from the Greek word meaning crippling pain. That is how much that being rejected or feeling that we have been rejected, when we have not been rejected, that's the kind of pain that ADHDers feel. It is crippling. And so ADHDers will do anything to avoid that pain, absolutely anything. And quite often, again, because many ADHDers don't know about RSD, they don't understand why they've got these things that they do in order to avoid this pain. They can't name it to tame it. And that's one of the things that ADHD coaching is very good at doing, is helping ADHDs understand all the different traits of ADHD, including this very crippling one. So ADHD is a rejection sensitive. It's actual rejection. So for instance, I was training an organization yesterday, and it was great to see so many employees. There was like 170 turn up, which was fantastic across America, Canada, and England. And there were quite a few, we made it quite interactive, and there were quite a few ADHDers in the group that were quite transparent about their challenges, which was really helpful for everyone else, right? Because it's not easy for ADHDers to share because of RSD. Again, that vulnerability, that courage to be vulnerable is something really difficult to find when you've got ADHD. But it's great, obviously, to be sharing with others because we can help others. So that's one of the strategies that we use to get over RSD, is to kind of reframe and to make it for others, not ourselves. So going back to RSD, crippling pain. So even constructive reviews, so appraisals and things like that in the workplace, when you're dealing with an ADHDer, you got to be careful how you deliver that review, because for an ADHDer, there's no such thing as constructive feedback, or constructive criticism rather. Any type of criticism, doesn't matter, if it's constructive, like objectively or not, is going to be criticism. It's going to be received as criticism. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt badly. And actually, if you want your ADHDer to be open to hearing the feedback you've got for them as a manager, you want to be making it safe. You don't want to be delivering constructive criticism, because quite often the ADHD, when they hear the criticism, will just shut down. So literally they can't access the cognitive. And we see this with all the ADHDs that are refusing school in education. Quite often, again, it's the RSD at play. Maybe someone has said something, teased them about something, and then that's it. All they can think about and they ruminate on are those hurtful words that play, around in their head again and again in this loop. And obviously they can't learn. So when an ADHD's RSD is triggered, it very much freezes a lot of us. I mean, there's different responses that we take to RSD, but one of them is freezing. And as a result, we can't actually work. We can't do anything. So it's really important that when you are working with ADHDs or managing an ADHD, that not only are you looking through the ADHD lens, but you're looking through the RSD lens, the rejection sensitive dysphoria lens. Yes, there's quite a bit to take into account, but making it safe, it's definitely worth it. Otherwise, you might have some really valid things to say and some things that the ADHD will really benefit from hearing. But you've got to be very careful in how you deliver it. You've got to make it safe. And what we always say to everyone, including in education, as well as the workplace, to teachers and managers, is to use a coaching approach, right? A coaching approach works really well when you're navigating RSD with ADHD, because you're not telling them, right? You're asking, not telling. And you're staying curious and you're actively listening. Now, that's really important, because with RSD, when an ADHD is told what to do, you're basically taking the choice away from them, because what it means for an ADHD is that if they do that thing you ask them to do, then they're admitting, right? Because in their head, they've heard you basically say to them, you are incapable, incompetent, and you can't come up with a single idea in your brain yourself. So I'm going to have to waste my time. You're going to inconvenience me, and I'm going to have to sit here and tell you exactly what to do. Now, obviously, that's not what the person has said to the ADHD, but that's what the ADHD hears. When we're at the TES-SEN show, actually, and we're talking to teachers, we were explaining that when a teacher, for instance, says to an ADHD in the classroom, Joe, can you please go and tidy up your pencils? What, again, for that ADHD, it's this instant kind of rejection. That ADHD hears, Joe, God, you're such a mess. Really, you can't do anything right. Look at all your other friends, they've managed to keep their desk clean, but you are just a pain. And I have to tell you to clean up your pencils because, you're so selfish that it probably wouldn't even occur to you to do it anyway, because you don't care about anyone else. Honestly. Remember, with ADHD, there is a negative narrative running in their head, one that develops from a very early age, often because of negative messaging that they receive due to ADHD that's not being understood. But it doesn't take much for that ADHD to complete that picture. It might not be an accurate picture, again, very much colored by their perception, by their experiences, negative experiences and feedback. But that is the picture that they create in their head. And I keep talking about these pictures when I talk about anything related to ADHD in coaching in particular, because I think it's a really good analogy in that we've got to check what picture everyone's looking at. Are we looking at the same picture here? Are we painting the same picture? Because ADHDs will often assume. They will create the picture. If you don't give them enough details, right? If you don't give them enough details to fill out that story, to complete that picture, they're going to go ahead and do it themselves. And because of the negativity bias in the ADHD brain, that picture ain't going to be pretty, right? So if you're a manager or a colleague in the workplace dealing with an ADHD, it's really important that you give them the specifics. Ambiguity, as I say, is an ADHD's enemy. Do not leave it up to the ADHD to conjure up that picture for themselves. It will never be pretty. So the way you can help them is to try and kind of, call out any kind of limiting beliefs or anything that they're assuming, because they will be assuming to complete that picture, and get them to reset, to paint the picture, the accurate one, and make sure they've got everything they need to paint that picture. Because otherwise, yes, RSD will breed breed in that picture, and that's not what we want. So it's about taking a coaching approach, taking time to hear out the ADHDer, making it really safe so that they feel that they can contribute to the shared pool of understanding. And I'm using technical jargon from a book called Crucial Conversations. But ADHDers need to be safe. They need to feel safe in order to kind of get that picture completed and get it right. If it doesn't feel safe, that ADHD is going to sit there with that incomplete or completely inaccurate picture, and it's not going to help them. It's not going to help anyone or the organization. Very much taking a coaching approach, asking the ADHD, kind of addressing any objections that they have, answering any questions, and helping them to not assume, so that they can, use evidence-based strategies in their head to defeat their RSD, because RSD is really, really crippling. So the more that we can help them, draw them out, make sure they're not making any of these kind of assumptions, the more we can help sense check the picture with them, the better. And it may be that they're in such a state because RSD, when it hits really hard. They need to create space. So for instance, I've had some clients that have agreed reasonable adjustments with their employers, where in a meeting, if their RSD is triggered, because let's face it, meetings are like a hot pot for RSD. So many opportunities for RSD to be triggered. This particular client got a reasonable adjustment to be able to just leave the room. So to be able to maybe excuse themselves to go to the bathroom, but get up and leave. It's really important that ADHDers are given that space to go, so that they can manage any kind of emotional dysregulation or RSD they're feeling, because it is visceral. RSD is wired. It's kind of wired into the brain as much as ADHD is, and it takes over. It's not easily overcome. I don't think, from what I've seen at least, you can ever resist RSD from occurring. It will hit. But what we can do in coaching, and also with medication, certain medication can help, we can mitigate against the impact of it. We can move through it more quickly. So this book is excellent, Crucial Conversations. Now, it talks about how these are tools for talking when stakes are high. Now, what I say to my ADHD is, because of RSD, unfortunately, every conversation is a crucial conversation, right? Because the stakes are always going to be high, and they're high due to the likelihood of RSD being triggered. Very, very likely. So, if everyone that works with ADHDs and ADHDs themselves, because I've had clients that have used this book as well, because it's important as well for ADHDs to understand these principles and make conversations safe as well, so that they reduce the chances on their end of maybe causing offense that they didn't mean to cause, right? And so it's kind of a joint responsibility. So the more that the ADHDs are across these principles, and the employers and teachers are across these principles, the more safe we can make it for our ADHDers to contribute to the shared pool of understanding. This is a beautiful book, very good. Now, just quickly, with RSD, there are several things that Dr. William Dodson, I don't know why my light is not working, because I'm technically incompetent. There's several things that Dr. Dodson outlines that ADHDers do to as a response to RSD, or rather to avoid RSD. Now, the first one is people pleasing. Yes, people pleasing. I think most ADHDers can relate to this one. Now, people pleasing, that means that ADHDers, we will try and get credit in the bank with people, because we know probably we're going to need it. We're going to forget something, disappoint them, let them down in some way. So we've got to keep them happy. So we usually put other people's needs before our own. We usually don't set boundaries, right? And this is a big problem. Obviously, in the workplace, that's going to look like massive workload. That's going to look like over-promising, under-delivering, right? We don't set expectations very well. They're not realistic, because in the moment in particular, we cannot say no. Now, this is another book that's really good called The Art of Saying No. And we've actually got like a little poster that we've summarized from this book. And if you'd like a copy, do get in touch with us. That's at admin@thehcadvocate.com. But it's a great little poster with some kind of alternatives to saying yes to everything, because on the spot, that's what we do, right? We don't want to displease anyone. We don't want to let the team down. So we say yes. The problem with that, we're only deferring the RSD because inevitably we cannot do everything and we cannot be everywhere all at once. And so we will end up disappointing. And because we haven't set the right expectations, that RSD, that disappointment is greater. The RSD is going to hit us even harder. So ADHD is please, we set rules in coaching usually around this stuff where we set intention that when people, for instance, ask us to go somewhere, we don't say no. ADHDers probably won't ever actually say no, right? I can't, I don't want to. Some ADHDers can, but many can't. And instead it's maybe saying, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. I'd really love to go. Or thank you. Again, big fig, beginning gratitude, finishing gratitude. Oh, thank you so much for thinking of me. I really would love to go. But you know what I'm like? I better just check that there's nothing kind of competing in my diary, or let me just check my calendar and get back to you, right? Now, there's other problems with this in terms of weak working memory, but in coaching, we look at that too. We make sure that, we look at every kind of thing that can get in the way to make sure that we try and set you up for success. Don't have time for that today, but it's about setting rules like that. But do grab yourself a copy of The Art of Saying No, and do get in touch if you'd like that little poster cheat sheet thing from us. So we've talked about people pleasing. Perfectionism is the second thing us ADHDers like to do in order to try and avoid RSD. If we are perfect, we're above reproach. So if we do things to the nth degree, then, and you can't find flaws, holes in any of our arguments or our work, then you can't possibly criticize us. Now, the problem with that is that usually we do things way over, the standard that they need to be done. And as a result, we often don't meet deadlines. And guess what? We end up disappointing anyway. And actually, sure, the criticism might not be around the quality of our work, but it will certainly be about not delivering on time, right? Maybe dropping balls, or there's other balls too. So again, really important, ADHD, is you're aware of this need for perfectionism, and that we start focusing on progress, not perfection, right? Setting a new standard, a fit for purpose standard, right? Rather than our usual good enough. I don't like good enough, guys. Don't say good enough, because if you're an ADHDer, what does the standard good enough equal? Perfect, right? And there's no such thing as perfect anyway. And creatives with ADHD have an even tougher time with this. So let's get out of our own way and be a little bit more specific and measurable, and ask, what am I trying to achieve here? What standard, do I need to do this to in order to achieve that? And get out of your own way, get accountability, do what you have to do to stick to that standard. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. And us ADHDers, we burn out. You can't please everyone, but we certainly try. So the third thing that we do is avoid. We really love our comfort zones, right? If we don't raise our head above the parapet, it ain't going to be chopped off, is it? So what we do, we dim our light to fit in. Okay, we stay small. Now, the problem with that is, how are you going to achieve your potential with that kind of mindset? You're not. And an ADHD is not going to really do it for themselves. And this goes back to that emphasis on interdependence, not independence, right? And where coaching very much comes in, the body double strategy. We can do things for others that we can't do for ourselves. So when it comes to kind of realizing your potential, when it comes to leaning into your discomfort zone, right? Because that's where we grow, right? Nothing grows in that comfort zone. Then this is where I really would urge you to get in touch with a coach, someone that can help throw your backpack over the wall, someone that understands your unique brain wiring and can help you understand it, identify your strengths, leverage those, and get you clear on where you want to go, right? Because that why, your why, is going to be the most effective motivator, right? And so in coaching, we help you keep your eye on your why as well. And the more you're kind of in integrity with who you are, this is another kind of RSD strategy. And we do this in coaching. We work out, your strengths, we work out your values, because important for ADHD is to live a life aligned with those values. The more we can be aligned with those and know who we are, when someone doesn't like something that we do, but we've acted in integrity, right? With who we really are, we've exercised our strengths, we're taking action aligned with our values, we've got that kind of criteria, or rather this kind of, I don't know, like a shield or something. And it's hard to kind of find the word to describe this, but we're not naked, if that makes sense. We know who we are. So sure, you may not like what I said or what I did, but I know who I am, right? I know who I am. And you may not agree with what I've said, but I know that I'm acting in integrity with who I am, and I know I have good intentions, and I'm sorry that you've taken offense at this, right? But it's more important that I align with my values and am authentic. And this is the kind of mindset we try to get our ADHDs to get to. And that's why mindset is like what we lead with in ADHD coaching, because without that, all the kind of strategies and methods and routines in the world, they're just not going to get you to thrive with your ADHD. So just to recap, rejection sensitive dysphoria, a big deal, name it to tame it, create space, lean on your body double strategy, sense check with people, right? Make sure you got that picture correct. You're probably assuming things. Check in with people. That's why interdependence is key. Don't do this alone. Don't be alone with those ruminative thoughts. And have a look at these books, Crucial Conversations to Keep Conversations Safe, and The Art of Saying No to Protect Your Boundaries, right? It's time to set a new standard, guys. Thank you for listening. And yes, do get in touch, admin@theadhdadvocate.com if you'd like a copy of that poster. So good luck, and we will speak to you tomorrow. I think we've got Tina speaking about strategies in the workplace in particular. But otherwise, guys, have a fantastic day. And yeah, stay true to yourselves.